Hi, everybody. My name is Keenan Hartert. I'm a biology professor at Minnesota State University, Mankato. Today, I'm going to show you some of the features that Prism has for graphing heat maps, and especially if you just want to do standard heat maps or you want to convert from a matrix form into more of a response summary variable form. And we'll show you how to use multiple variables format to give that a shot. Today, I'm going to load in some basic Likert scale data. Then after that, we'll do some more continuous data that we'll be able to really visualize some of the heat map capabilities with and go on and showcase how this format can show off a lot of data at once. So in this first case, we would go ahead. I'm going to load in my data from my spreadsheet into the grouped format. This is the standard way to approach a heat map. From this point, you can see my theme right here, that I had different people answer these questions about on a scale of 1 to 5, how much they like certain things. So 5 out of 5 for coffee means you love coffee. And in every case, you can kind of see that everybody had a spread look at everything. It would actually ask me right here to go ahead and say, okay, how do you want to graph this? After all, this is summary data. It offers a lot of bar graphs, things like that. Obviously, this is too much to have that handled. A heat map is actually going to be one of our better ways to do so. So if you just have good summary data like this is a good look. I'm going to go ahead and change a couple things in here for labels. I actually really like adding the cell borders to any heat map. I like adding the value in this case. Sometimes that gets a little busy for people, but that's kind of your call. Given this too, I want to add the row titles and I want to add the column titles to everything. And I definitely want to show every single column in this case. Given that, as you can tell down here, I'm going to have to probably either reduce this text size down here, and I know you can go about down to 4 if I wanted. What I'll have to do right here is double click and say, I just want this to go down and be a little more angled in this case. So I'm just going to give that a little angled degree right here. So looks good. Now, in terms of color schemes, again, you have a really good set of choices for Prism in terms of what you want. I like the Viridius like this. It's a very well-known color scheme. You can also kind of have it do something a little more standard if you wanted. I could say like a double gradient could also say it, especially for like cleaner, kind of more less continuous data like this. This isn't bad to say like, okay, let's do a green for something you like, one for something you don't like is going to be a red. That doesn't look too bad. And again, if you change these values to give them some decimals, you would see a continuous spectrum on here. So given that, let's actually transition over to a multiple variables setup instead. So given that, now we're in multivariable over here, you can see that in this format, I have categorical setups right here, where if you did attend office reviews or not, if you did attend over 90%, that's higher. And if you did have work commitments that were either low, which is under 20 hours a week. Next, for every row, which is every student, we've loaded in exam 1 through 3, the total class percent, and then just the average exam for everybody. So given this, I have a couple capabilities that we can go here. I can create I can do some of the old XY stuff here with this data, and that would be good. I bet I could make a pretty good little XY right here of something like, exam 2 versus, 1 versus 2. And then maybe the color could be, did you attend a lot? And maybe for size, I could say whether or not they had high commitments or not. This is really nice. This is really one of the better ways to showcase, kind of some relationships in here. But if I really wanted to show all the data in one spot, this is a very good slot to try that in. So the rows versus columns in this case, my rows were each person, each student, and then the columns are each factor. So this is more of a standard approach for a heat map. In this case, what I'm going to do is instead of asking what are my X columns and Y, if I tell it and I leave it right here and I say, in the X column, I want to say, well, did you attend or not? And well, did you go to any reviews? Those are going to be my X and Ys. This is actually going to make a summarized piece of data in this case. I want to know the mean score for this metric right here. What is the average exam score, depending on if you were in the high or low category for attendance and the high and low category for reviews? So going right here, we can already tell there's going to be some differences. Now, the good thing right here is with multiple variables in the heat map setting right here. I am going to want to label it with each title. I'm going to do kind of a lower number of decimals in this case because we're dealing with exam percentages. And right here, we could actually technically change that right there, but variable levels seem fine. So This is one of the best features that we have for heat maps in multiple variables. It will actually summarize the data for you. Can you imagine going through and finding all four of these groups manually in a spreadsheet? I wouldn't want to. So if you attended class very little and you also never went to any reviews, you're looking at a mean of 56% on the average exam. That's not ideal. And again, you can mess with the color schemes over here. I love Viridius, but you can definitely do something a little more standard if that's what you want. I could do a double gradient right here. I'm going to do the largest value in this case. That's a happy color, smallest value, not a good color, and white in the middle. And you'll see that sort of pop out right there. So yeah, not as much variation in this heat map because it's only doing 4 summarized averages. So looking fine. I don't mind this right here. And again, in terms of labels, showing the cell border is, one of my favorite ways to clean stuff up. I would maybe get that a little lower like that. Not bad. I can also, if I wanted to say, I want the median for each of these. And you'll actually see that could definitely change in that case, and averages versus medians are different. I could see, hey, how many just in each group do I even have? And you would then see that high reviewers but low attenders was a really small number of people, right? The last thing, again, you can look at variance. So I'm going to do standard deviation right here if I want to see if any of the groups were really like spotty, essentially. And again, you would see that that larger one down there is the most variable in that case. So each one of these is going to give a very cool setup in this case. And then, yeah, that's just variables on variables. We kind of know that. So in this case, using this to kind of summarize matrices into numbers that we can actually utilize is going to be really helpful. And if I want to go a little deeper than this, and actually here, I want to keep my cell borders. I want to do, oh, good. If I want to change any of the variables on this, I can go right here. I can say metric variable. You know what? I want to see overall in class what we're going to do. This is going to change based on each one. In this case as well, I can start doing really nice little setups right here for each exam. So if I double click here and I say, how was exam 1? Okay, so there's the exam 1 stats going right here. How did things go from exam 2? Okay, and exam 3. The flexibility here is immense in terms of what you can kind of summarize with this setup. So as we covered, the original grouped format is going to be a great way to just kind of visualize heat maps, just raw. Wonderful. Multiple variables is going to give you that same capability, but you have the summary capability when it's time to say, hey, what do my axes want to be? And again, if I want to say, instead of reviews, did I have students that had the high work commitments, right? And I want to see average exam. Immediately I can say, all right, high work commitments and low attendance, you're looking at a 53.7% average in that population, and that's tough. And then again, I can see instead what's the count on this setup, how many people do I have in each cohort, and like you saw probably at the end right there, what are my proportions for each cohort? I didn't give it many decimal points, so that would be something that I would probably want to change right here to give me some more variation. There we go. So thank you very much for joining. This has been sort of a showcase of heat maps in this case and your capabilities using Prism.